The emergency room of St. Mary's Hospital in Portland, Maine, thrummed with its usual controlled chaos on that frigid December night. Fluorescent lights cast a harsh glow over the linoleum floors as Dr. Eliza Morgan finished her 22nd hour on shift. Her shoulders ached with fatigue, and the coffee in her hand had long gone cold, forgotten during the rush of a multi-car accident that had occupied the staff for most of the evening. The automatic doors hissed open, letting in a blast of winter air that sent a chill through the waiting room. Eliza glanced up, expecting another patient. Instead, a large golden retriever stood at the threshold, its thick fur dusted with snowflakes, its breath creating small clouds in the cold air. The dog's intelligent eyes scanned the room with an almost human awareness. "What in the world?" muttered Nurse Wilson, looking up from her station. The dog took 3 deliberate steps forward, then paused. A small whimper escaped its throat, barely audible above the hospital's ambient noise. It was then that Eliza noticed what the dog was carrying. A small bundle wrapped in a blood-stained blue blanket, held gently between its jaws. Time seemed to freeze as the realization hit her. "Oh my God," she whispered, the cold coffee slipping from her fingers and splashing across the floor. "That's a baby." The dog's eyes locked with hers, filled with an urgency that transcended the barrier between species. In that moment, something passed between them. An understanding, a plea, a promise. Eliza rushed forward, her exhaustion forgotten. The dog didn't flinch or growl as she approached, instead lowering its head slightly, offering her the bundle. With trembling hands, she took the blanket, peeling back its edge to reveal a tiny, newborn infant. The baby's skin was pale, tinged with blue, its small chest rising and falling with shallow, labored breaths. "I need a trauma team, Stat," Eliza shouted, cradling the infant. "Get me a warming blanket, oxygen, and call NICU. This baby is hypothermic and in respiratory distress." The ER erupted into motion, staff rushing to prepare equipment, while Eliza carried the infant to the nearest trauma bay. The dog followed, padding silently behind her, its nails clicking against the hard floor. When a security guard moved to intercept the animal, Eliza shook her head. "Let it stay," she ordered, not entirely understanding her own instinct. "Something tells me we haven't heard the whole story yet." As nurses connected monitors and oxygen to the tiny infant, Eliza couldn't help but glance back at the dog. It sat perfectly still just outside the trauma bay, its eyes never leaving the baby. Its fur was matted with more than just snow. There was blood on its chest and paws, and a deep cut across its shoulder that it seemed to ignore completely. Male infant, approximately newborn, possibly premature, Eliza dictated as she examined the child. Moderate hypothermia, respiratory distress, umbilical cord appears to have been cut roughly, not clamped properly. There's residual bleeding. Her practiced hands worked quickly, stabilizing the baby, whose cries now filled the room. A sound that, despite its urgency, filled Eliza with relief. Crying meant fighting. Fighting meant a chance. "Where did he come from?" asked Dr. Ramirez, the pediatrician who had rushed down from the NICU. "Was he abandoned at the entrance?" "No," Eliza said, nodding toward the dog, who remained vigilant at its post. "He was brought in by that dog." Ramirez followed her gaze, his eyebrows shooting upward in disbelief. That's not possible. I saw it with my own eyes," Nurse Wilson confirmed, her voice hushed with awe. "That dog carried him in like it knew exactly what it was doing." As the team worked to stabilize the infant, Eliza found her attention continually drawn back to the dog. There was something in its bearing, a mixture of exhaustion and determination, that spoke of a journey far more harrowing than the short walk through the hospital doors. "Someone needs to check that dog for injuries," she said, noticing again the blood on its fur. "And call animal control. We need to figure out where it came from." "Already on it," Wilson replied. "But animal control says it'll be at least an hour before they can get here. The storm is getting worse." Outside, the snow had indeed intensified, transforming from gentle flakes to a howling blizzard that rattled the windows. Whatever path the dog had taken to reach them was now likely buried under a blanket of white. The baby stabilized enough for transport to the NICU, and as the team prepared to move him, the dog rose to its feet, muscles tensing as if to follow. "It's okay," Eliza found herself saying, kneeling down to the dog's level. "We're taking care of him now. He's going to be all right." The dog's eyes bore into hers, and for a moment, Eliza could have sworn there was a human intelligence behind them. Not just instinct, but understanding. Then, without warning, the animal's legs buckled, and it collapsed onto the floor with a heavy thud. "The dog's down," Eliza called out, rushing to the animal's side. Now that it was no longer standing guard, she could see the extent of its injuries. Not just the cut on its shoulder, but patches of fur missing from its legs, deep lacerations across its back, and paw pads raw and bleeding. "Whatever happened to this baby?" she muttered, placing a gentle hand on the dog's heaving flank. "This dog went through hell to get him here." As another team was quickly assembled to tend to the dog, Eliza felt a chill that had nothing to do with the winter storm outside. The story of this night was just beginning to unfold, and something told her that the truth, when it emerged, would shake her to her very core. The NICU hummed with the soft beeps of monitors and the occasional hush of a nurse's voice. Dr. Morgan stood before the incubator, studying the readouts with practiced eyes. The baby, temporarily named John Doe, had stabilized remarkably well given his ordeal. His temperature had normalized, his oxygen levels were improving, and initial tests showed no immediate signs of congenital issues. "It's almost miraculous," Dr. Ramirez commented, joining her at the incubator. "A few more hours in that cold, and we'd be having a very different conversation." Eliza nodded, her gaze still fixed on the tiny form wrapped in hospital blankets. "Any luck identifying him? Missing persons? Hospital alerts for a mother who left against medical advice?" "Nothing," Ramirez sighed, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. "Sheriff's department has been notified, but with the storm, they're tied up with accidents and power outages. They'll send someone when they can." "And the dog?" "Dr. Green from the veterinary college is looking at him now. She happened to be stranded here when the roads closed." He paused, his expression thoughtful. "It's strange, Eliza. The dog isn't microchipped, but its injuries, Green says they're not consistent with an accident or animal attack." A cold dread settled in Eliza's stomach. "You mean someone hurt it intentionally?" "That's her best guess. Some of the wounds look defensive. And there's something else." He hesitated, lowering his voice. "The blood on the dog's fur? It's not all the dogs, and not all the babies either. There's a third blood type, human." The implications hung in the air between them. Whatever scenario had led to a dog delivering a newborn to their doorstep was becoming increasingly disturbing. "I need to see the dog," Eliza decided, her voice firm. "The baby is stable and in good hands," she countered, already removing her lab coat. "There's more to this story, and right now, that dog is our only witness." In a makeshift treatment area set up in an unused office, Eliza found Dr. Green, a woman in her 40s with prematurely gray hair and kind eyes, carefully cleaning a sedated dog's wounds. "Dr. Morgan," Green greeted her without looking up. "I heard you were the one who received our hero here." Eliza approached slowly, taking in the massive form of the Malamute. Cleaned of blood and dirt, its silver and white fur seemed to shimmer under the lights. Various monitors beeped steadily, tracking its vital signs. "How is he?" Eliza asked, keeping her voice low. "She," Green corrected gently. "And she's a fighter. Multiple lacerations, 2 broken ribs, severe exhaustion, and early stages of hypothermia herself. But her prognosis is good, assuming no infection sets in." Dr. Ramirez mentioned the injuries appeared deliberate. Green's hands stilled, her expression hardening. "Yes, some are defensive wounds, consistent with an animal protecting itself. Others," She carefully lifted a bandaged paw. These aren't from running through the woods. The pads are burned, as if she ran across something very hot. And these cuts on her back? They have the clean edges of a blade. Eliza's mind raced with horrific possibilities. Do you think she was protecting the baby from whoever did this to her? I can't say for certain, Green admitted, resuming her ministrations. But I've worked with rescue dogs for 20 years, and I've never seen one risk its life to this degree without a profound bond to whoever it was protecting. She met Eliza's gaze, her eyes serious. This dog wasn't just bringing a random baby to safety. She was on a mission. A soft whine drew their attention. The dog's eyes had opened, clouded with pain but alert. When she saw Eliza, her tail thumped once against the examination table. She recognizes you? Green observed, surprised. Eliza moved closer, placing a gentle hand on the dog's head. Hey there, she murmured. You're safe now. So is the baby. At the mention of the baby, the dog's ears perked forward, and she attempted to lift her head, only to be restrained by her injuries and the 4-line. Easy girl, Green soothed. You've done your job. Rest now. But the dog's eyes remained fixed on Eliza, intense and pleading. Impulsively, Eliza pulled out her phone and scrolled to a photo she'd taken of the baby in the NICU, stable and sleeping peacefully. She held it where the dog could see. See? He's okay. Thanks to you. The change was immediate. The dog visibly relaxed, her eyes softening as she looked at the image. Then, to both doctors' astonishment, a single tear slid from the corner of her eye, wetting the fur beneath. I've never seen anything like that, Green whispered, staring. It's almost as if. A knock at the door interrupted her. Nurse Wilson stood in the doorway, her face pale. Dr. Morgan, there's a sheriff's deputy here. They found something at Miller's Creek Road, about 5 miles from the hospital. Found what? Eliza asked, already dreading the answer. Wilson swallowed hard. A cabin, with signs of a home birth. And blood. A lot of blood. The dog whined again, louder this time. Her eyes now fixed on Wilson with an intensity that sent chills down Eliza's spine. She knows, Eliza realized aloud. Somehow, she knows exactly what we're talking about. Green looked skeptical, but professional curiosity won out. The deputy should come see her. Maybe she could lead them back, once she's stronger. But Eliza's instincts were screaming that time was of the essence. The baby's mother could still be out there, she said urgently. Injured. Dying. She looked back at the dog, who was now struggling to stand despite her injuries, as if responding to Eliza's realization. Their eyes met again, and in that moment, Eliza made a decision that would alter the course of many lives, including her own. Tell the deputy I'm coming with him, she said to Wilson, and that we'll need a wildlife tracker and emergency medical supplies. If there's someone out there, this storm will kill them before morning. As she turned to leave, she felt something tug at her scrubs. The dog had managed to stretch her neck out far enough to catch the fabric between her teeth, holding Eliza in place with surprising gentleness. I'll come back, Eliza promised, stroking the broad head, and we'll find whoever you're trying to protect. Together. The dog released her clothing and sank back onto the table, exhausted but seemingly satisfied with the promise. Whatever silent communication had passed between them, it had been understood. Outside, the blizzard raged on, blanketing the world in white. Somewhere in that frozen landscape, answers awaited. Answers that would reveal how a loyal dog and a newborn baby had found themselves alone and fighting for survival on the coldest night of the year. Deputy Mark Connor wasn't happy about taking a doctor into a potential crime scene, much less during the worst blizzard in a decade. His weathered face, framed by a sheriff's department parka, made his disapproval clear as Eliza climbed into his SUV. This isn't a rescue mission, Doctor, he said gruffly, shifting the vehicle into drive. Not officially. We don't even know if anyone's out there. The dog brought a newborn to our hospital, Eliza countered, securing her medical backpack between her feet. That baby didn't appear out of nowhere. Someone gave birth, and based on the blood Nurse Wilson mentioned, they're in serious danger. Connor sighed, navigating the snow-covered streets with practiced ease. Jim Tucker, he's the one who found the cabin, said it looked bad. Blood on the floor, signs of a struggle. But no body. Then where's the mother? Eliza pressed. That's what concerns me, Connor admitted. Nearest neighbor is 3 miles away. No cars at the cabin. If someone walked out in this weather, especially after giving birth, he left the implication hanging. They drove in tense silence, the wipers fighting a losing battle against the relentless snow. By the time they reached the turnoff for Miller's Creek Road, visibility had dropped to mere feet, and the SUV's powerful engines struggled against the deepening drifts. Tucker and the K9 unit are already up there, Connor said, pointing to the faint glow of emergency lights barely visible through the swirling white. But the dogs haven't been able to pick up a scent. The storm's washing everything away. As they approached the cabin, a small, weathered structure set back from the road, Eliza felt a sense of foreboding. Yellow crime scene tape fluttered in the wind, an incongruous splash of color against the monochromatic landscape. 3 official vehicles were parked haphazardly in what must have been the driveway, their emergency lights casting eerie, rotating patterns across the snow. Inside, the cabin told a story of desperation. A living room had been hastily converted into a birthing space. Towels spread on the floor, a first aid kit open and depleted, instructions for emergency delivery printed from the internet and now bloodstained. The kitchen held signs of long-term habitation. Canned foods, bottled water, a camp stove. Whoever had been here had been preparing to stay hidden. Looks like the birth happened here, said Tucker, a tall, thin officer with a perpetually worried expression. He pointed to a large dark stain on the wooden floor. Based on the blood spatter and these drag marks, there was some kind of altercation afterward. Someone was injured badly and moved toward the back door. The mother, Eliza asked, her medical mind cataloging the amount of blood loss, dangerous, potentially fatal, especially for someone who had just given birth. Can't say for sure, Tucker replied. But we found this. He held up an evidence bag containing a wallet. Driver's license identifies the tenant as Christine Lawson, 28. Paid cash for 6 months rental back in September. Owner lives in Florida. Didn't ask questions. The name tickled something in Eliza's memory, but before she could place it, one of the K9 officers called from outside. We've got something. Fresh tracks heading into the woods. Eliza rushed out, Connor close behind. The officer was pointing to barely perceptible depressions in the snow, footprints being rapidly filled by fresh snowfall. Human? Connor asked, squinting. No, canine, the officer replied. Large breed, moving fast despite the weather. Came from and returned to the forest. He looked up, eyes wide with realization. These could match your Malamute, doctor. Eliza's heart raced. The dog was trying to get help. She brought the baby to the hospital, and now these tracks could lead us back to where she came from, Connor finished, his professional skepticism warring with hope. If someone's out there, they don't have much time left, Eliza said urgently. Body temperature drops fast in these conditions, and with blood loss accelerating the process. Connor made a quick decision. Tucker, call for backup and the snow rescue team. Martinez, get your dog to follow these tracks while they're still visible. Officer Martinez, a compact woman with determined eyes, unclipped the leash from her Belgian Malinois. Ranger, track, she commanded, allowing the dog to sniff the footprints. The police dog hesitated, circling the area with confusion. The scent was nearly gone, erased by the powerful storm. He's not picking it up, Martinez said, frustration evident. The wind's too strong, the snow's too fresh. A heavy silence fell over the group, broken only by the howling wind. If they couldn't follow the tracks, anyone out there was as good as dead. Eliza's phone chimed, a text from Dr. Green. The Malamute is awake and agitated, she read aloud. She's trying to leave, pulling out her 4. Green can't sedate her again so soon without risking complications. An idea struck Eliza with the force of certainty. "Bring her here." "The injured dog?" Connor asked incredulously. "In her condition?" "She found her way to the hospital through this storm once already," Eliza insisted. "She knows where she's going. She's been trying to tell us something from the beginning." Connor looked like he wanted to argue, but the grim reality of their situation won out. "Make the call," he conceded. It took 45 precious minutes for Green to arrive with the Malamute, bundled in thermal blankets in the back of her SUV. The dog was clearly in pain, but alert, her eyes scanning her surroundings with recognition as soon as they pulled up to the cabin. "This is a terrible idea medically speaking," Green muttered, helping the massive dog out onto the snow. "She should be hospitalized for at least a week." But the Malamute seemed to have other plans. As soon as her paws touched the ground, she lifted her head into the wind, nostrils flaring. Without hesitation, she limped purposefully toward the tree line, stopping only to look back at the humans, as if asking why they weren't following. "I'll go with her," Eliza said, shouldering her medical pack. "Not alone, you won't," Connor countered, checking his sidearm and flashlight. "Martinez, you and Ranger come too. The rest of you, secure the scene and guide the rescue team when they arrive." The Malamute waited until they were ready, then plunged into the forest, moving with surprising speed despite her injuries. The humans struggled to keep pace, fighting through snow drifts and low-hanging branches laden with ice. "She knows exactly where she's going," Martinez marveled as the dog navigated the featureless white landscape without hesitation. After 20 grueling minutes, the trees thinned, revealing a steep ravine. The Malamute paused at the edge, whining urgently and looking down. Connor aimed his powerful flashlight into the darkness below. The beam caught something reflective, metal partly buried in snow. "It's a car," he realized aloud. "Went off the road and rolled." The Malamute barked once, sharp and demanding, then began carefully picking her way down the treacherous slope. They followed cautiously, the snow making each step treacherous. The vehicle had come to rest against a cluster of trees, its front end crushed, windows shattered. It was nearly invisible from the road above, hidden by the terrain and now by the snow that had begun to bury it. The Malamute reached it first, frantically pawing at the driver's side door, which hung open at an odd angle. As Eliza's light joined Connor's, they saw what had the dog so distressed. A woman lay half in, half out of the vehicle, her body partly covered by snow. Her face was deathly pale, lips blue, a deep gash across her forehead crusted with frozen blood. More blood had soaked through her clothes around her midsection. "Christine Lawson," Tucker confirmed, recognizing her from the driver's license. Eliza pushed past him, medical training taking over as she pressed fingers to the woman's neck. For a long moment, she felt nothing, and her heart sank. Then there it was, the faintest pulse, thready and weak, but present. "She's alive," Eliza announced, already pulling emergency blankets from her pack. "But just barely. Severe hypothermia, blood loss, possible internal injuries from the crash." The Malamute whined, nudging the woman's hand with her nose. The gentle touch seemed to penetrate whatever darkness had enveloped Christine. Her eyelids fluttered, opening to reveal dilated pupils that struggled to focus. "Luna," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You came back." The dog Luna pressed closer, her large body shielding Christine from the falling snow. Christine's trembling hand lifted just enough to touch the dog's fur. "The baby," Christine managed, each word a visible struggle. "My baby." "He's safe," Eliza assured her, working quickly to stabilize her for transport. "Your dog brought him to the hospital. He's getting the best care possible." A tear slid down Christine's cheek, freezing before it reached her jaw. "Smart girl," she murmured to the dog. "Knew what to do, just like we practiced." The statement was so unexpected that Eliza's hands paused momentarily. You practiced? For this? Christine's eyes focused briefly on Eliza's face. Had to. They were coming. Had to protect him. Who was coming, Christine? Connor asked gently, kneeling beside them. Who were you hiding from? But Christine's consciousness was slipping away again, her eyes rolling back. Eliza cursed under her breath, redoubling her efforts. We're losing her. We need to move now. As they carefully extracted Christine from the wreckage and secured her to an emergency stretcher, Luna remained vigilant, her eyes constantly scanning the forest around them. Despite her own injuries, the dog positioned herself between the group and the deeper woods, her posture alert despite her exhaustion. She thinks there's still danger, Martinez observed, watching the Malamute's behavior with professional interest. She's standing guard. Connor followed the dog's gaze, his hand instinctively moving to his weapon. Let's not assume she's wrong. The cabin showed signs of a struggle. Someone else could have been involved. The trek back up the ravine was agonizingly slow, each person taking turns helping carry the stretcher while fighting the increasingly violent storm. Luna led the way, stopping periodically to ensure they were following, her protective instinct seemingly overriding her pain. By the time they reached the cabin, red and blue lights were flashing through the snow. The promised backup had arrived, along with the medical rescue team. Christine was quickly transferred to their care, loaded into an ambulance equipped for severe weather conditions. I'm going with her, Eliza announced, climbing in beside the stretcher. Luna too. No one argued. The Malamute jumped into the ambulance without prompting, settling herself in the small space near Christine's feet, her watchful eyes never leaving her owner's face. As the doors closed and the ambulance began its careful journey back to the hospital, Eliza found herself filled with questions. Who had Christine been running from? Why had she given birth in such isolation? And how had she trained her dog to bring her newborn to safety in the event of disaster? Answers would have to wait. For now, the priority was keeping Christine alive long enough to reunite her with the child she had gone to such extraordinary lengths to protect. 3 days passed before Christine Lawson opened her eyes again. 3 days of touch-and-go moments, blood transfusions, and surgeries to repair internal damage from both childbirth complications and the car accident. 3 days during which Eliza found herself increasingly drawn into a mystery that extended far beyond her medical duties. The baby, now officially listed as Baby Lawson in hospital records, was thriving despite his traumatic entry into the world. Preliminary DNA tests confirmed what they had all assumed. He was indeed Christine's son. What remained unclear was the identity of the father, and why a young woman would go to such lengths to give birth in isolation during the worst winter on record. Luna, meanwhile, had become something of a hospital celebrity. After her own injuries were treated, she'd been granted special permission to stay, partly due to Eliza's insistence, partly because no one had the heart to separate her from the baby she had saved. The massive dog spent her days split between the NICU, where she would lie for hours watching the baby through the glass, and Christine's ICU room, where she maintained her vigilant watch. It was Luna's soft whine that alerted Eliza first, the dog's ears perking up as Christine's eyelids began to flutter. Eliza, who had been reviewing lab results at the bedside, looked up just in time to see awareness slowly return to her patient's face. Christine? She said softly, pressing the nurse call button. Christine, can you hear me? You're in St. Mary's Hospital. You're safe. Christine's eyes, a striking blue that hadn't been apparent when they were dilated from shock, darted around the room, panic building until they landed on Luna. The sight of the dog seemed to ground her, her breathing slowing from the rapid pace it had begun to adopt. Luna, she whispered, her voice hoarse from the intubation she'd required during surgery. You made it. The dog responded with a gentle woof, her tail thumping against the floor. Eliza marveled again at the bond between them, a connection that had literally meant the difference between life and death. Your dog is quite remarkable, Eliza said, checking Christine's vital signs as she spoke. She saved your baby's life, and yours too, by leading us to you. At the mention of the baby, Christine's eyes widened, her hand clutching at Eliza's sleeve with surprising strength. My son. Where is he? Is he all right? He's perfectly fine, Eliza assured her, gently disengaging Christine's grip. 6 pounds 4 ounces, slightly premature but breathing on his own. No signs of distress or developmental issues. He's in our NICU as a precaution, but he's one of our healthier patients. The relief that washed over Christine's face was palpable, tears welling in her eyes. Can I see him? Soon, Eliza promised. Once we're sure you're stable. You've been through significant trauma, Christine. You lost a dangerous amount of blood, suffered internal injuries, and nearly died of hypothermia. You've had 3 surgeries in the past 72 hours. Christine sank back against the pillows, fatigue evident in every line of her body. But he's really okay? See for yourself. Eliza pulled out her tablet, bringing up the NICU's secure baby camera feed. The screen showed a healthy newborn sleeping peacefully in his incubator, tiny chest rising and falling in a reassuringly regular rhythm. Christine stared at the image, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. He looks like his father, she whispered, touching the screen with trembling fingers. The moment was interrupted by the arrival of Nurse Wilson and Dr. Ramirez, both clearly pleased to see their patient conscious. As they performed their checks and updated Christine on her medical condition, Eliza found herself studying the young woman more closely. Now that she was awake and the immediate crisis had passed, Eliza could see that Christine Lawson was not what she had first appeared. Her hands, though delicate, showed calluses consistent with firearms training. The musculature visible beneath her hospital gown suggested someone accustomed to physical demands. And her eyes, while warm when looking at Luna or the baby's image, held a wariness that spoke of someone long accustomed to looking over her shoulder. Once the medical team had completed their assessment and left instructions for Christine to rest, Eliza found herself alone with her patient again. Luna had settled her large frame half under the bed, positioned so she could see both Christine and the door, still on guard even here. You trained her to take the baby to safety, Eliza said. Not a question but a statement. You prepared for the possibility that you might not be able to protect him yourself.
Christine's gaze met hers steadily, measuring, assessing.
Whatever she saw in Eliza's face must have satisfied her, because she gave a small nod. Luna was a military dog before she found me, she said softly.
Afghanistan.
ID detection. Her handler was killed, and she was scheduled for retraining, but she wasn't adjusting well. They were going to. Christine swallowed hard, put her down, called it failure to reintegrate. Luna's ears twitched at the sound of her name, but she remained at her post, vigilant as ever. I was working as a veterinary technician on the base, Christine continued. I couldn't let that happen. I'd seen what she could do, how intelligent she was. So I adopted her, gave her a new purpose. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. She took to the training so quickly, carrying weighted bundles, following specific routes, finding help. You were preparing for the worst, Eliza observed. Why? Who were you hiding from? Christine. The wariness returned to Christine's eyes, sharper now. You found me at the cabin? Eliza nodded. There was blood, signs of a struggle. And a man? Did you find anyone else?
No.
Just tracks in the snow, yours and Luna's. The sheriff's department is still investigating. Christine's expression darkened. Then he's still out there. Who? Christine seemed to be weighing her options, deciding how much to reveal. Finally, she sighed, a sound heavy with exhaustion that went beyond the physical. My baby's father, she said simply. Or rather, the man who believes he is. Eliza frowned, confused. Believes? His name is James Harrow, Christine continued, her voice dropping despite the privacy of the room. We met 3 years ago when I was working at a research facility in Colorado. He was charming, brilliant, specialized in genetic engineering. We got involved quickly, too quickly. By the time I realized what he was really doing with his research, I was already in too deep. She paused, glancing toward the door as if fearing someone might be listening. Luna raised her head, attuned to her owner's anxiety. What was he doing? Eliza prompted gently, creating genetic modifications without ethical oversight or approval, using himself as a test subject. Christine's hands twisted in the blanket. He became obsessed with creating what he called the next stage of human evolution. When I discovered I was pregnant, he was thrilled, but not in the way a normal father would be. He saw our child as the perfect subject for his work. The implications made Eliza's blood run cold. He wanted to experiment on your baby? Christine nodded, her expression haunted. I confronted him, told him I wouldn't allow it. That's when I saw the other side of him, the violence he was capable of. She touched her shoulder unconsciously, where Eliza knew a partially healed scar lay beneath the hospital gown. He made it clear I didn't have a choice, that both the baby and I belonged to him. So you ran, Eliza surmised. I planned for months, Christine confirmed. Changed identities, moved across the country, isolated myself. Luna was my only companion, my protector. I knew James would never stop looking, but I hoped I'd hidden well enough to at least give birth safely. Her expression hardened. I almost made it. He found you at the cabin, Eliza realized. The night I went into labor. I don't know how, maybe he traced a supply purchase. Maybe he had someone watching medical facilities for pregnant women matching my description. But suddenly he was there, right when I was at my most vulnerable. The pieces began falling into place for Eliza. The blood in the cabin, Christine's desperate escape, the injuries Luna had sustained defending her. Luna attacked him, she said, glancing at the dog with newfound appreciation. She gave you time to get away. Christine nodded, reaching down to stroke the Malamute's broad head. She fought like a demon. I grabbed the baby and ran for my car, but the storm was so bad, and I was bleeding, I lost control on the road and went into the ravine. She shuddered at the memory. I was trapped, losing consciousness. I knew we wouldn't survive the night in that cold. So I did the only thing I could think of. You sent Luna with the baby, Eliza finished softly. Our last resort plan. Christine's eyes filled with tears. I wrapped him as warmly as I could, used a belt to create a harness so Luna could carry him securely. I told her to find help, just like we'd practiced. I didn't know if she'd make it, if she'd be able to find the hospital through the storm, if anyone would understand. Her voice broke. I just knew he'd die if he stayed with me. Eliza felt her own eyes growing moist. The courage it must have taken to send your newborn away with only a dog for protection, knowing you might never see either of them again. Luna came back for you, she said. After bringing the baby to us, she returned to the crash site. That's how she got so injured, making that journey twice in a blizzard. She always was too stubborn to give up on me, Christine whispered fondly, as Luna pressed closer to the bed. Even when I'd given up on myself. The room fell silent for a moment. The only sound the steady beeping of monitors and Luna's contented sigh as Christine continued to stroke her fur. But the peace was fragile, shadowed by the unspoken threat still hanging over them. Christine, Eliza said carefully, the sheriff's department needs to know about James Harrow. If he's still looking for you and the baby. He is, Christine interrupted, her voice suddenly sharp with fear. You don't understand. He's not just some obsessed ex. His experiments, they changed him, made him stronger, faster. His senses are enhanced beyond normal human capacity. That's how he tracked me across the country. How he found me in that remote cabin during a blizzard. She gripped Eliza's arm, her fingers digging in with surprising strength. And he has resources, money, connections, people who believe in his work. Eliza fought to keep her expression neutral, though alarm bells were ringing in her mind. Was Christine delusional? Suffering from postpartum psychosis, perhaps? The story of genetic self-experimentation sounded like something from a science fiction film. But then she remembered Luna, a dog who had somehow navigated miles of wilderness in a blizzard, not once but twice, who had known exactly where to bring a newborn for safety, who showed an intelligence that went beyond even the most well-trained service animals. And she remembered the third blood type found on Luna's fur. Human, but not Christine's. Not the baby's. "I'll speak to Deputy Connor," Eliza promised. "We'll make sure you're both protected until this is sorted out." Christine's grip on her arm loosened slightly, but the fear in her eyes remained. "You believe me?" "I believe something extraordinary happened," Eliza answered carefully. "And I believe you're genuinely afraid. That's enough for now." As if sensing the tension, Luna stood, stretching her massive frame before moving to stand protectively between the door and Christine's bed. Her posture was alert but calm, a guardian ready for whatever might come. "She's been doing that since I woke up," Christine noted, watching her dog. "Standing guard. She only does that when she senses." She trailed off, her face paling further. Eliza followed her gaze to Luna, noting the subtle changes in the dog's demeanor, the slight raise of her hackles, the focused intensity of her gaze on the door. "What is it?" Eliza asked, her own anxiety rising in response. "What does she sense?" Before Christine could answer, a soft knock came at the door, and Luna's growl rumbled low in her chest. A warning, not yet a threat, but unmistakable in its intent. The door opened to reveal Nurse Wilson, her usual cheerful expression replaced with one of professional concern. Behind her stood a man Eliza didn't recognize. Tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, with a hospital visitor's badge clipped to his lapel. "Dr. Morgan," Wilson said, her voice carefully neutral. "This gentleman is from Child Protective Services. He's here about baby Lawson." The man stepped forward, extending a hand that Eliza didn't take, too distracted by Luna's increasingly agitated state. The dog's growl had deepened, her body now rigid with tension, eyes fixed not on Wilson but on the stranger. "Thomas Green." The man introduced himself smoothly, seemingly unbothered by either the doctor's reticence or the dog's obvious hostility. "I'm following up on a report of child abandonment and endangerment. I'll need to speak with Ms. Lawson privately about the circumstances surrounding her baby's delivery." Christine's heart monitor began beeping faster, her pulse visibly spiking on the display. Her wide eyes locked with Eliza's, silently pleading. "Mr. Green," Eliza said, stepping between him and the bed. "I'm afraid that's not possible right now. Ms. Lawson is recovering from major trauma and surgery. Any stress could seriously compromise her condition." Green's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I understand your concern, doctor, but this is a time-sensitive matter. The welfare of the child is not in question," Eliza interrupted firmly. "The baby is receiving excellent care, and there are extenuating circumstances regarding his delivery that the sheriff's department is already investigating." She gestured to Luna, whose growls had become more pronounced. "As you can see, this is causing distress to both my patient and her service animal. I'm going to have to ask you to leave and return at a more appropriate time." Something flickered across Green's face, a momentary crack in his pleasant facade, revealing something cold and calculating beneath. His gaze shifted to Christine, and Eliza felt a chill run down her spine at the intensity in his eyes. "Of course," he conceded after a pause that stretched a beat too long. "We wouldn't want to impede Ms. Lawson's recovery. I'll be back tomorrow with the proper documentation." He reached into his jacket, producing a business card that he placed on the nearby table. "If you have any questions in the meantime." As he turned to leave, Luna's growls suddenly escalated to sharp, aggressive barks. The dog lunged forward, stopped only by Christine's quick command of, "Luna, stay." Green didn't flinch, didn't even look surprised, just smiled that empty smile again before walking out, Nurse Wilson following with a bewildered glance over her shoulder. The moment the door closed, Christine was struggling to sit up, panic evident in every movement. "That's him," she gasped, tears streaming down her face. "That's James. Oh God, he found us." Eliza rushed to her side, easing her back against the pillows while checking the monitors. Christine's blood pressure was dangerously elevated, her heart racing. "Are you sure?" Eliza asked, though Luna's reaction had already convinced her. The dog was now pacing in front of the door, agitated and alert, occasionally casting anxious glances back at Christine. Positive, Christine whispered. He's changed his appearance, hair, eyes, but it's him. The way he stands, the way he looks at me. She clutched at Eliza's hand. He's come for the baby. You can't let him near my son. Eliza's mind raced. If Christine was right, if this man truly was James Harrow, then he had waltzed into a hospital with fake credentials, gaining access to both Christine and potentially the baby. The thought sent ice through her veins. I need to alert security, she said, reaching for the phone. And call Deputy Connor. No! Christine grabbed her wrist, surprising Eliza with her strength. You don't understand. If James knows we've recognized him, he'll either disappear and come back another way, or, she swallowed hard, or he'll take more direct action. He's not above hurting anyone who stands between him and what he wants. Then what do you suggest? We can't just wait for him to return tomorrow. Christine's eyes darted around the room, mind clearly working despite her weakened state. We need to move. Now. Tonight. Before he comes back. Her gaze settled on Luna, who had returned to her side. And we need Luna with us every step of the way. She'll know if he's near, even if he changes his appearance again. Eliza wanted to argue, to insist that Christine was in no condition to be moved, that hospital security and local law enforcement could handle this threat. But the certainty in Christine's voice, and the memory of Luna bringing a newborn through a blizzard to safety, gave her pause. Sometimes the most outlandish explanation was also the truth. Let me make a call, she said finally. Not to the police, to someone I trust. If what you're saying is true, we'll need help getting you and the baby somewhere safe. As Eliza stepped into the hallway to make her call, she couldn't shake the image of Thomas Green's eyes, the coldness in them, the calculating assessment. It had been the gaze of a predator sizing up prey, not a concerned social worker. And Luna had known it instantly. Whatever the truth about James Harrow's experiments, one thing was becoming clear. Christine Lawson and her extraordinary dog had stumbled into Eliza's life for a reason, and their story was far from over. The hospital's service elevator hummed softly as it descended to the lower level, its single light flickering overhead. Eliza checked her watch, 2:17 a.m., the quietest hour of the night shift. If they were going to move Christine and the baby, now was the time. Beside her, Christine sat tensely in a wheelchair, her hospital gown replaced with scrubs, a heavy blanket draped over her legs concealing the 4-bag Eliza had insisted she keep. Despite her protests, Christine was still dangerously weak, her body nowhere near recovered from its ordeal. Luna stood at attention by the wheelchair, her ears constantly moving, alert to every sound. The dog wore a hastily created service vest, courtesy of Dr. Green, who had orchestrated this entire extraction with remarkable efficiency once Eliza had explained the situation. You're sure about this contact of yours? Christine asked, her voice barely above a whisper. We can trust them? With my life, Eliza assured her. Mark Sutton was my brother-in-law before my sister passed. He runs a hunting lodge in the mountains, about 2 hours from here. It's remote, defensible, and he's a former Army Ranger. If anyone can keep you and the baby safe while we sort this out, it's Mark. The elevator doors slid open to reveal the hospital's basement level. A maze of storage areas, maintenance rooms, and the rarely used tunnel that connected to the adjacent medical building. Dr. Ramirez waited there, cradling a bundle wrapped in blue blankets. Any problems? Eliza asked quietly, wheeling Christine forward. Ramirez shook his head. Security cameras in the NICU corridor are experiencing a technical malfunction, he said, making air quotes with his free hand. Baby Lawson is officially undergoing routine tests. By the time anyone realizes he's not where he's supposed to be, you'll be long gone. Christine's arms reached out instinctively, and Ramirez carefully transferred the sleeping infant to his mother. The moment was so raw, so vulnerable that Eliza had to look away, feeling like an intruder on something sacred. Thank you, Christine whispered, cradling her son close for the first time since his birth. I don't know how I can ever repay you both for this. Just keep him safe, Ramirez said kindly. And when this is over, bring him back for a proper checkup. He handed Eliza a bag. Formula, diapers, basic supplies. Enough for a few days. Luna whined softly, nudging Christine's elbow until she lowered the baby slightly, allowing the dog to sniff him carefully. The Malamute's tail wagged once in apparent approval before she resumed her vigilant posture. Mark's waiting at the service entrance, Eliza said, checking her phone. We should move. They navigated the dimly lit corridor in tense silence, every distant sound making them pause. Luna led the way, occasionally stopping to listen before proceeding, their early warning system, more reliable than any security device. The service entrance was little more than a loading dock where food deliveries and waste removal occurred. A battered pickup truck idled there, its engine a low rumble in the pre-dawn darkness. A broad-shouldered man with a weathered face and watchful eyes stepped out as they approached. Eliza, he greeted with a nod, then assessed Christine and the baby with a quick, professional glance. His eyes lingered longest on Luna, a flicker of approval in his expression. Military working dog? Former, Christine confirmed.
Afghanistan.
IED detection and personnel protection. Mark nodded again, as if this explained everything he needed to know. She'll be useful where we're going. Let's move before your friend in the fancy suit figures out what's happening. Eliza helped transfer Christine and the baby into the truck's extended cab, making sure the four was secure. Luna jumped in without prompting, positioning herself on the floor at Christine's feet, where she could watch both her charges and the road ahead. I've arranged for a colleague to cover my shifts, Eliza said, handing Mark a bag of medical supplies. I'll follow in my car once I'm sure no one's watching. Christine will need regular medical attention for at least a week. Mark raised an eyebrow. You're coming too? This could get dangerous, Liz. It already is, she replied firmly. And Christine's my patient. I'm not abandoning her now. The truth, which Eliza hadn't fully admitted even to herself, was more complicated. In the short time since Luna had brought baby Lawson to the hospital doors, Eliza had become invested in their story in a way that went beyond professional obligation. There was something about the fierce determination of both Christine and her dog that resonated with her. A reminder of her own resilience after losing her sister, perhaps. Be careful, she told Mark, stepping back from the truck. And call when you're clear of the city. As the pickup pulled away, disappearing into the dark, Eliza felt a strange mixture of relief and apprehension. Had she just helped save a woman and child from a dangerous predator? Or had she potentially aided in a kidnapping based on the delusions of a traumatized new mother? She turned to head back inside, only to freeze as a figure emerged from the shadows near the hospital wall. Interesting night for a patient transfer, isn't it, Dr. Morgan? Thomas Green, or James Harrow, if Christine was to be believed, stood blocking her path to the door. His tailored suit had been replaced by dark casual clothing, but his cold smile remained unchanged. Eliza's heart hammered in her chest, but she kept her expression neutral. Mr. Green, it's a bit early for Child Protective Services to be making rounds, isn't it? I think we can dispense with the pretense, Doctor. He stepped closer, and Eliza had to fight the urge to back away. Where is she taking my son? The confirmation that he was, indeed, James Harrow sent a chill through Eliza, but she held her ground. I don't know what you're talking about. Ms. Lawson is in her room, recovering from surgery. No, she isn't. His smile widened, revealing perfect teeth that somehow reminded Eliza of a predator's fangs. Just as my son is no longer in the NICU. But you know that, don't you? If you have concerns about a patient, you should speak to hospital administration in the morning, Eliza replied, edging toward the door. Now, if you'll excuse me. Harrow moved with startling speed, blocking her path again. I've spent the last 9 months tracking Christine across 3 states. I've invested too much to let her disappear again. His voice remained conversational, which somehow made his words more threatening. That child represents the culmination of my life's work. He's a baby, Eliza countered, anger temporarily overriding her fear. A human being, not an experiment. He's the next stage of human evolution, Harrow corrected, his eyes gleaming with fervor. My DNA, enhanced through my research, combined with Christine's exceptional genetic profile. He's perfect or will be, once I've completed the modifications I have planned. The casual way he spoke of experimenting on his own child made Eliza's stomach turn. Christine hadn't been exaggerating or delusional. The man before her was genuinely planning to use an infant as a test subject. "You're insane," she said quietly. "No, doctor. I'm visionary." Harrow's expression hardened. "Now I'll ask once more. Where has Christine taken my son?" Eliza straightened her spine, meeting his gaze directly. "I don't know. And if I did, I certainly wouldn't tell you." For a moment, she thought he might attack her there in the hospital parking lot. His body tensed, and something savage flashed across his face. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the mask of civilized calm returned. "You've made a serious error in judgment, Dr. Morgan." He stepped back, straightening his jacket. "Christine can't hide forever, especially not with a newborn and that distinctive dog of hers. When I find them, and I will, I'll remember your role in this inconvenience." He turned and walked away, his movements fluid and purposeful. Eliza remained frozen until he disappeared around the corner of the building, then rushed inside, her hands shaking as she pulled out her phone. Mark answered on the first ring. "We're clear of the city," he reported. "No signs of pursuit." "He knows," Eliza said without preamble. "Harrow." He was waiting outside. "He knows Christine and the baby are gone." There was a brief silence on the other end. "Did he follow you to the truck?" "No, he was already there." "It's like he—" Eliza hesitated, remembering Christine's warnings about Harrow's enhanced senses. "It's like he knew what we were planning." "Change of plans, then," Mark said, his voice grim. "We can't risk the lodge if he's tracking us. I'll take them to the cabin on Blackwater Ridge instead. It's more isolated, harder to find." "You remember how to get there?" "Yes, but—" "No more phone calls after this," Mark interrupted. "Too risky. Meet us there when you can, and make sure you're not followed." The line went dead. Eliza stood in the empty hospital corridor, the weight of what was happening fully settling on her shoulders. This was no longer just about helping a patient. She was now actively involved in hiding a woman and child from a man who believed them to be his property. A man who, if Christine was right, had scientifically enhanced himself to be more than human. And yet, despite the danger, despite the professional risk, Eliza couldn't bring herself to regret her decision. The image of Luna carrying a newborn through a blizzard, of Christine sending her baby away to save him, of that cold calculation in Harrow's eyes. All of it confirmed that she had made the only choice she could live with. She would see this through whatever the cost. For Christine, for the baby, and for Luna, the extraordinary dog who had started it all with her desperate journey through the snow. The mountain road twisted sharply as Eliza navigated her SUV higher into the wilderness, pine trees pressing close on either side like silent sentinels. She had left the hospital at the end of her shift, telling no one of her destination except for a vague mention of a weekend hiking trip to clear her head after the excitement of the past few days. Beneath her calm exterior, every nerve was on edge. Twice during her drive, she had pulled over and waited, convinced she was being followed. Each time, the road behind her had remained empty, yet the feeling of being watched persisted. The sun was setting by the time she reached the turnoff to Blackwater Ridge, an unmarked dirt track that most would miss if they didn't know exactly where to look. Mark's cabin was one of the most isolated in the area, accessible only by four-wheel drive and a knowledge of the terrain that came from years of hunting these woods. As she navigated the final stretch, Eliza's mind returned to her last encounter with James Harrow. There had been something unnerving about his confidence, his certainty that he would find Christine and the baby. It wasn't just arrogance. It was the absolute conviction of a predator who knew his prey couldn't escape. The cabin appeared ahead, a solid structure of logs and stone nestled against the hillside. Smoke curled from the chimney, and through the windows, She could see the warm glow of lamps. It looked peaceful, welcoming, a haven from the encroaching darkness. Mark must have heard her approach. He opened the door before she could knock, rifle casually held in one hand, his face relaxing when he recognized her. "Any problems?" he asked, scanning the darkening forest beyond her. "Nothing concrete," Eliza admitted, stepping inside. "But I can't shake the feeling that he's out there, watching, waiting." The cabin's main room was warm and rustic, dominated by a stone fireplace where logs crackled pleasantly. Christine sat in an armchair nearby, the baby asleep in her arms. Luna lay at her feet, alert despite her relaxed posture, her eyes immediately focusing on Eliza as she entered. "How are they?" Eliza asked, setting down her medical bag and moving to check Christine's vitals. "Better than expected," Mark replied, securing the door behind her. "Christine's tough. And that dog," he nodded toward Luna with respect, "hasn't relaxed her guard since they arrived. Best security system I've ever seen." Christine offered a tired smile as Eliza checked her pulse and temperature. "Luna senses things before they happen," she explained. "It's why she was so valuable in Afghanistan. She can detect changes in scent, in air pressure, in subtle sounds. It's almost supernatural sometimes." "Nothing supernatural about it," Mark commented, checking the ammunition in his rifle. "Just exceptional breeding and training, combined with instincts that haven't been domesticated out of her." Eliza completed her examination, relieved to find Christine's condition improving. The baby, too, showed all the signs of a healthy newborn, despite his traumatic entry into the world. "You should both be in a hospital," she sighed, repacking her stethoscope. "But I have to admit, this is probably the safest place for you right now." Christine's expression darkened. "James found you at the hospital, didn't he? After we left?" Eliza nodded, seeing no point in hiding the truth. "He knew you were gone before anyone else noticed. He seemed very confident that he'd find you again." "He always is," Christine said bitterly, adjusting the sleeping infant in her arms. "It's not just arrogance. His experiments gave him enhanced tracking abilities, heightened sense of smell, hearing beyond normal human range. It's how he kept finding me, no matter how carefully I covered my tracks." Mark, who had been maintaining a professional skepticism about Christine's more fantastic claims, frowned. "Are you saying he can literally track you by scent? Like a bloodhound?" "Among other things," Christine confirmed. "His research focused on activating dormant animal traits in human DNA. He started small, improving night vision, enhancing strength and endurance. But as he progressed, the changes became more significant." She shuddered. "I saw him track a research assistant who had stolen data through a crowded city just by catching his scent once. The man changed clothes, took 3 different subway lines, even went through a car wash in a taxi. James still found him within 4 hours. The cabin fell silent except for the crackling of the fire and the soft breathing of the baby. Eliza exchanged glances with Mark, seeing her own unease reflected in his eyes. "If what you're saying is true," Mark said slowly, "then this cabin won't hide you for long." "No place will," Christine agreed, her voice hollow with resignation. "Not permanently. That's why I sent Luna with the baby that night. I hoped that even if James found me, at least our son would be safe." She looked down at the infant, tears welling in her eyes. "I never expected to survive long enough to see him again." Luna whined softly, raising her head to rest it on Christine's knee. The gesture was so full of understanding, so deliberate, that Eliza again marveled at the bond between them. "Christine," she said gently, "you mentioned James's research. Do you have any proof? Documentation, data, anything that could help authorities understand what we're dealing with?" Christine hesitated, then nodded toward a backpack in the corner. "My laptop. It has encrypted files, samples of his research, video documentation of experiments, financial records showing who's been funding him. I took it when I ran. It's why he's so determined to find me, beyond even the baby. That data could destroy his career, expose his illegal research. Mark retrieved the laptop, setting it on the table. If we can get this information to the right people. That's the problem, Christine interrupted. James has connections in law enforcement in government agencies. People who believe in his work, who protect him. I never knew who I could trust. The baby stirred, making small sounds of hunger. As Christine adjusted her position to feed him, Luna suddenly stiffened, her head snapping toward the window. A low growl rumbled in her chest. Not yet aggressive, but a clear warning. Mark immediately moved to douse the lamps, plunging the cabin into semi-darkness, the fireplace now the only source of light. "What is it?" he whispered, rifle ready. "She senses something?" Christine murmured, clutching the baby closer. "Someone's out there." Luna padded silently to the window, her nose pressing against the glass as she scanned the darkness beyond. Her growl deepened, hackles rising along her spine. "Could be an animal?" Mark suggested, though his tone belied his words. "Bear, maybe, or mountain lion." But Eliza knew better. The specific alertness in Luna's posture, the focused intensity of her gaze. It was the same reaction she'd had in the hospital when Thomas Green appeared. "It's him," she whispered, fear crystallizing in her chest. "Somehow he's found us." Mark moved to the window, careful to stay to the side of the frame as he peered out into the darkness. "I don't see anything," he reported. "But if he's out there, he's at a disadvantage. We have shelter, supplies, weapons. He's alone in unfamiliar terrain at night." "You don't understand," Christine said, her voice trembling. "The dark isn't a disadvantage for James. It's where he's strongest." Before anyone could respond, a sharp crack echoed through the cabin, the sound of breaking glass from the back room. Luna's bark was instant and ferocious, her powerful body launching toward the sound with startling speed. "Stay with them," Mark ordered Eliza, moving to follow Luna, rifle raised. Heart pounding, Eliza helped Christine to the farthest corner of the room, positioning herself between the new mother and whatever threat was entering the cabin. She grabbed a heavy iron poker from beside the fireplace. A pitiful weapon, but better than nothing. The sounds from the back room were chaotic. Luna's snarling barks, the crash of furniture, a man's shout, then a gunshot, deafeningly loud in the confined space, followed by silence. "Mark!" Eliza called, her voice tight with fear. "Mark!" No answer came. The cabin seemed to hold its breath, the only sound the soft whimpering of the baby, disturbed by the commotion. "He's coming?" Christine whispered, tears streaming down her face as she clutched her son. "Oh God, he's coming for us." Eliza tightened her grip on the poker, every muscle tense as she faced the doorway to the back room. "Stay behind me," she instructed, though she knew how futile the command was. If Harrow had overcome both Luna and Mark, heavy footsteps approached slowly, deliberately, a predator savoring the moment before the kill. Eliza raised the poker higher, her palms slick with sweat. A figure filled the doorway, silhouetted against the darkness behind. Not Mark's broad-shouldered frame, but a leaner silhouette that somehow seemed to absorb the firelight rather than reflect it. "Christine." James Harrow's voice was soft, almost gentle. "Did you really think you could hide from me? That you could keep my son from his destiny?" He stepped into the room, and Eliza had to suppress a gasp. The man before them was still recognizable as the Thomas Green who had appeared at the hospital, but the changes were unmistakable. His eyes reflected the firelight like an animal's, pupils expanded to consume the iris. His posture was different too, more fluid, less human in its perfect stillness. "Where are Mark and Luna?" Eliza demanded, fighting to keep her voice steady. Harrow's gaze flicked to her dismissively. "The man with the rifle will recover eventually." "The dog." A smile curved his lips, cruel and satisfied. Well, she proved more challenging than expected. Extraordinary animal. Such a waste. "No," Christine moaned, the single syllable filled with anguish. "Luna." "She fought admirably," Harrow continued, taking another step forward, "as she did at the cabin during your ill-considered escape. But even the best guardian can't stand against evolution. He turned his attention fully to Christine, his eyes locking on the bundle in her arms. Is that him, my son? Our perfect creation. He's not yours? Christine spat, her grief transforming to rage. He'll never be your lab rat, your experiment. Harrow sighed, as if disappointed by a child's tantrum. Still so emotional, Christine, so unwilling to see the bigger picture. Our son won't be an experiment. He'll be the prototype for a new species. Humanity's next step. His voice took on a fervent quality. Think of it, human intelligence combined with animal strength, senses, instincts. No more disease, no more weakness. A perfect synthesis of nature's best attributes. You're talking about playing God, Eliza interjected, desperately trying to keep him talking, to buy time. Manipulating a child who can't consent. It's not just illegal, it's monstrous. Harrow's attention returned to her, his inhuman eyes narrowing. And what would you know of advancement, Dr. Morgan? You patch up broken bodies, extending lives by increments, while I create the future. He gestured to himself. I've transcended mere humanity. I'm stronger, faster, more aware than any person who ever lived. And my son will be even more perfect. At what cost? Eliza challenged, seeing the flickers of madness beneath his controlled exterior. Look at yourself. You're losing your humanity with every enhancement you force on your body. Something dangerous flashed across Harrow's face, a ripple beneath the civilized mask. Humanity is overrated, he said softly. A limiting factor, nothing more. Now step aside, doctor. This doesn't concern you. I'm making it my concern, Eliza replied, gripping the poker tighter. You're not taking that child. Harrow's laugh was cold, genuinely amused. And you think you can stop me? With a fireplace tool. He shook his head, almost pitying. I respect your loyalty, misguided as it is. But this ends now. He moved with blinding speed, closing the distance between them before Eliza could react. One moment he was across the room, the next his hand was batting away the poker as if it were made of paper, sending it clattering across the floor. Eliza gasped as his fingers closed around her throat, lifting her with inhuman strength until her feet barely touched the ground. Dark spots danced at the edges of her vision as she clawed uselessly at his grip. I take no pleasure in this, Harrow said calmly, watching her struggle. But you've interfered enough. Through her dimming consciousness, Eliza was aware of Christine's scream, of the baby's frightened wail. She fought against the darkness threatening to engulf her, knowing that once she lost consciousness, Christine and the child would be defenseless. And then, from somewhere beyond the darkening edges of her awareness, came a sound that cut through everything else. A deep, guttural growl that seemed to vibrate the very air of the cabin. Harrow's head snapped toward the doorway, his grip on Eliza loosening just enough for her to drag in a desperate breath. His eyes widened, something close to fear crossing his face for the first time. Impossible, he whispered. In the doorway stood Luna, her magnificent form silhouetted by the firelight. Blood matted her silver fur, darkening one side of her face, but her eyes burned with fierce determination. Her teeth were bared in a snarl that promised death, her powerful body tensed to spring. Harrow released Eliza, who collapsed to the floor gasping for air, and turned to face the dog. There was something almost like respect in his expression as he studied Luna. You should be dead, he said quietly. I made sure of it. Luna's growl deepened, her eyes never leaving Harrow's face as she took a deliberate step forward. Blood dripped from her wounded shoulder, but she showed no sign of pain, no hint of weakness. Behind her, Eliza could just make out Mark's unconscious form on the floor of the hallway. Remarkable loyalty, Harrow observed, shifting his stance to a fighting position. A pity such devotion is wasted on protecting obsolete forms of life. With shocking speed, he lunged toward Christine and the baby. But Luna was ready. She launched herself through the air, a silver blur of fur and fangs, colliding with Harrow mid-stride. The impact sent both of them crashing into the wooden table, splintering it beneath their weight. Eliza scrambled to Christine's side, pulling her and the baby toward the door. "We need to get out of here," she gasped, her throat burning from Harrow's grip. But Christine shook her head, eyes fixed on the brutal fight unfolding before them. Luna was a force of nature. Her jaws locked on Harrow's arm as she drove him back with the full weight of her body. Yet Harrow was matching her, his movements inhumanly fast, his strength clearly augmented far beyond normal capabilities. "The gun!" Christine whispered urgently, nodding toward Mark's fallen rifle near the doorway. "Get the gun. It's our only chance." Eliza hesitated only a moment before darting toward the weapon, keeping low as Luna and Harrow continued their savage battle across the cabin. Furniture shattered, glass broke, and the air filled with growls both canine and disturbingly human. As her fingers closed around the rifle's cold barrel, a pained yelp cut through the chaos. Luna had been thrown against the stone fireplace with devastating force, her body crumpling to the floor with a sickening thud.
"Luna!"
Christine's anguished cry seemed to reach the dog, who struggled to rise, legs trembling with the effort. Harrow stood in the center of the destroyed room, chest heaving, blood streaming from multiple bite wounds on his arms and shoulders. His shirt was in tatters, revealing skin that seemed to ripple and shift beneath the surface, as if something alien lived within his flesh. "Enough of this," he snarled, voice deeper than before, less human. "You've defied me for the last time, Christine." Eliza raised the rifle with shaking hands, aiming it squarely at his chest. "Don't move," she ordered, hoping he couldn't hear the tremor in her voice. "Stay right where you are." Harrow's gaze shifted to her, those unnatural eyes assessing the threat. His lips curved into something between a smile and a grimace. "Dr. Morgan, always interfering." He took a measured step forward. "That weapon can't stop what I've become." "Maybe not," came a new voice from behind Eliza. "But this might." Mark stood in the doorway, blood streaming from a head wound but eyes clear and focused. In his hands he held not a weapon, but Christine's laptop, screen glowing with rows of data and images. "Your research," he said, meeting Harrow's suddenly wary gaze. "All of it. Every illegal experiment, every modified gene sequence, every unauthorized human trial. Christine encrypted it, but it turns out I have a way with computers." He held up a small device in his other hand. "And this satellite uplink is currently transmitting all of it to every major news outlet, law enforcement agency, and scientific ethics board in the country." Harrow went perfectly still, the only movement the strange rippling beneath his skin. "You're bluffing," he said, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. "Am I?" Mark countered. "The transmission started 5 minutes ago. By morning, your face and your work will be on every screen in America. There's nowhere you can hide, no one who can protect you now." For the first time, something like fear crossed Harrow's face. Not fear of them, Eliza realized, but fear of exposure, of his precious work being dragged into the light. "You don't understand what you're doing," he said, voice suddenly urgent. "My research could transform humanity, eliminate suffering, extend life beyond current limitations. At what cost?" Christine interrupted, rising shakily to her feet, the baby clutched protectively against her chest. "How many unwilling test subjects? How many lives destroyed? How many children manipulated before they're even born?" Her voice strengthened with each word. "You're not a visionary, James. You're a monster who lost his humanity in pursuit of power." Harrow's expression contorted, his features shifting subtly in ways that made Eliza's skin crawl. "This isn't over," he hissed, backing toward the broken window. "You can expose me, but you can't undo what I've become. And I'm not the only one working toward this future. Others will continue what I started." Before anyone could move to stop him, he turned and leaped through the shattered window with inhuman agility, disappearing into the darkness beyond. Mark rushed to the window, peering out into the night. "He's gone," he reported grimly, moving faster than any human could through that terrain. Eliza was already kneeling beside Luna, hands gently probing the dog's injuries. The Malamute's breathing was labored, her magnificent coat stained with blood, but her eyes remained alert and fixed on Christine and the baby. "How bad is it?" Christine asked, dropping to her knees beside them, tears streaming down her face. "Multiple lacerations, possible internal bleeding, several broken ribs," Eliza assessed quickly. "She needs emergency veterinary care," but she left the implication hanging. The nearest animal hospital was hours away, and Luna's condition was deteriorating rapidly. "No," Christine whispered, laying her free hand on Luna's head. "Not after everything. Not when we're finally safe." Luna whined softly, struggling to raise her head toward the baby. With tremendous effort, she managed to stretch her neck just enough to touch her nose to the infant's blanket, as if assuring herself that her charge was unharmed. The simple gesture broke something in Eliza's professional detachment. This wasn't just an animal. This was a being who had saved a newborn's life, who had twice tracked through impossible conditions to reunite a mother and child, who had just sustained potentially fatal injuries protecting them all. "Mark," she said, determination hardening her voice, "we need to get her to my clinic. Now, help me stabilize her for transport." As they worked together to create a makeshift stretcher for the injured dog, Eliza found herself whispering a silent prayer, not to any specific deity, but to whatever force in the universe recognized and rewarded such extraordinary courage and devotion. Luna had done the impossible once already, bringing a baby safely through a blizzard. Perhaps she had one more miracle left in her. The waiting room of St. Mary's Hospital was unusually quiet for a Monday morning. Eliza sat with a cup of cooling coffee, watching the early sunlight filter through the blinds. She hadn't slept in 36 hours, but adrenaline and purpose kept fatigue at bay. 3 weeks had passed since the confrontation at the cabin. 3 weeks of interviews with federal agents, of securing protection for Christine and her son, of watching the media explosion as James Harrow's research came to light. The scientific community was still reeling from the revelations, breakthrough genetic manipulation techniques intermingled with horrific ethical violations. Harrow himself had vanished. Despite a nationwide manhunt, there had been no confirmed sightings. Some speculated he had fled the country. Others, familiar with the extent of his self-modification, suggested he might be living in the wilderness, increasingly unable to pass as human. Eliza's thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Ramirez, a folder clutched in his hands and an unusually serious expression on his face. "You have them?" she asked, setting aside her coffee. He nodded, taking the seat beside her. "Just came in this morning. I ran them twice to be sure." And Ramirez opened the folder, revealing pages of test results and genetic analysis. "It's remarkable, unlike anything I've ever seen in 20 years of practice." He pointed to a specific sequence on one of the charts. "Baby Lawson's DNA shows subtle but unmistakable modifications. Nothing that affects his current health or development, but markers that suggest potential for enhanced physical capabilities, accelerated healing, possibly even extended longevity." Eliza absorbed this information slowly. So Harrow was telling the truth. He had begun the process even before the child was born. "In a limited way, yes," Ramirez confirmed. "But here's what's truly fascinating." He flipped to another page. "The baby's modifications are nothing compared to what we found in his mother's blood work." "Christine." Eliza frowned in confusion, but she said Harrow was experimenting on himself, not on her. "That's what makes this so extraordinary. Christine's genetic profile shows evidence of natural mutation, not artificial manipulation like what we see in the baby's DNA or what was documented in Harrow's research. She has genetic markers that are incredibly rare, expressing traits that most humans carry but that remain dormant." "What kind of traits?" "Enhanced sensory perception, primarily. Her brain processes visual and auditory information differently than the average person, allowing her to detect subtleties most would miss. Her blood work also shows unusual hormone patterns that suggest heightened intuition, what some might call a sixth sense for danger." Eliza leaned back, mind racing with implications. That's why Harrow was interested in her, not just as a vessel for his child, but because her natural genetic makeup complemented his research. Exactly, Ramirez nodded. He didn't need to modify her. She was already naturally expressing traits he was trying to artificially induce in himself. And the baby inherited both, Eliza murmured. Harrow's artificial enhancements and Christine's natural mutations. Ramirez closed the folder, his expression grave. Which makes him potentially very special. And potentially very vulnerable if others with Harrow's ambitions learn about him. The weight of this new information settled heavily on Eliza's shoulders. She had already arranged for Christine and the baby to enter a specialized witness protection program once they were both fully recovered. But this added a new dimension to the dangers they faced. There's something else, Ramirez said, hesitating. Something I wasn't sure whether to include in the official report. What is it? It's about the dog, Luna. He lowered his voice, though the waiting room remained empty. The veterinary team that performed her surgery sent blood samples for analysis, mainly to check for infections given the nature of her wounds. One of the lab technicians noticed some anomalies and ran further tests out of curiosity. Eliza felt a prickle of unease. What kind of anomalies? Her cellular structure shows signs of advanced evolution not typically seen in canines. Her neural pathways, based on the scans done before surgery, are more complex than normal, closer to primate patterns in some areas. And her blood shows trace elements of a compound we can't identify, something that seems to enhance oxygen delivery to tissues in a way we've never documented before. Are you saying she was one of Harrow's experiments? The possibility made Eliza's stomach turn. The thought of Luna, loyal, courageous Luna, being subjected to Harrow's manipulations was almost too terrible to contemplate. I don't think so, Ramirez replied thoughtfully. At least not directly. The changes appear long established, possibly even congenital. My theory, and this is purely speculation, is that she may have been bred from animals that were part of earlier research. Perhaps even from a military program focused on creating enhanced service animals for combat situations. Eliza remembered what Christine had said about Luna's background. Her exceptional abilities as a military working dog, her uncanny intelligence, her almost supernatural awareness of danger. It made a disturbing kind of sense. Does Christine know? She asked. Not yet. I wanted to consult with you first, given your involvement in the case. Eliza considered the implications carefully. I think she should know. Whatever Luna's origins, she deserves the truth about the partner who saved her life and her child's. She paused, a new thought occurring to her. How is Luna? Have there been any updates from the veterinary hospital? A smile finally broke through Ramirez's serious demeanor. That's actually the good news I was saving. Against all medical probability, she's recovering. Dr. Green says it's the most remarkable healing progression she's ever witnessed. Injuries that should have taken months to heal are already showing significant improvement. She's awake, alert, and apparently driving the staff crazy with her determination to leave. Relief washed over Eliza. After the brutal fight with Harrow, Luna's survival had seemed miraculous but tentative. The dog had lost a dangerous amount of blood, suffered multiple fractures, and sustained internal injuries that would have killed most animals her size. When can she be released? Green thinks by the end of the week, assuming the current rate of recovery continues. Ramirez hesitated again. There's one more thing. The federal agents overseeing Christine's case are suggesting that Luna be rehomed once she recovers. They believe the dog is too distinctive, too easily recognized by anyone looking for Christine and the baby. Eliza felt a surge of protective anger. That's not an option. You didn't see them together, Ramirez. The bond between Christine and Luna, between Luna and that baby, it's extraordinary. Separating them would be cruel beyond words, especially after everything that dog sacrificed to keep them safe. I agree, Ramirez said, surprising her. And I've told them as much. I've recommended that Luna be considered an essential medical support animal for both Christine and the infant, given the trauma they've experienced. My report emphasizes that separating them could have severe psychological consequences for all involved. Eliza felt a rush of gratitude toward her colleague. Thank you. That might be enough to convince them. especially with all the public attention this case has received. Indeed, Luna had become something of a national hero after the story broke. The image of a devoted dog carrying a newborn through a blizzard to save its life had captured the public's imagination. Social media campaigns demanding she receive an Animal Bravery Award had gone viral, and several children's book authors had already contacted the hospital requesting permission to tell her story. "When can I see them?" Eliza asked. "Christine and the baby were moved to the secure wing this morning," Ramirez replied. "You have clearance to visit whenever you like. Just be prepared. There are federal agents stationed outside her room around the clock." Eliza nodded, gathering her things. The test results Ramirez had shared added new complexity to an already extraordinary situation, but they didn't change what mattered most. A mother, child, and their remarkable guardian deserved to stay together, to heal, to have a chance at a normal life after the nightmare they'd endured. As she made her way through the hospital corridors, Eliza reflected on the strange turns her life had taken since that snowy night when Luna had appeared at the emergency room doors. She had always prided herself on her rational, scientific approach to medicine. Yet she had witnessed things in the past weeks that stretched the boundaries of her understanding. The astonishing bond between human and animal, the incredible resilience of the body and spirit, the thin line between scientific advancement and monstrous ambition. The secure wing of the hospital was quiet, its entrance monitored by two serious-faced agents who checked Eliza's credentials before allowing her to pass. Outside Christine's room, a third agent nodded respectfully as she approached. "Dr. Morgan," he greeted her. "They're expecting you." Eliza knocked softly before entering the room. Inside, a transformation had taken place. What had been a standard hospital room was now filled with evidence of extended stay. Personal items, books, a small collection of baby supplies. Christine sat in a chair by the window, sunlight illuminating her face as she gently rocked her son in her arms. "Eliza," she smiled, looking up, "we were just talking about you. Were you now?" Eliza returned the smile, moving to the bedside. "And how is our little miracle today?" "Growing stronger by the hour," Christine replied, a mother's pride evident in her voice. "The nurses say he's the calmest baby in the ward. Hardly ever cries. Just watches everything with those serious eyes of his." Eliza studied the infant, who indeed seemed unusually alert for his age, his gaze tracking her movements with remarkable focus. Whether from Harrow's modifications, Christine's natural genetic gifts, or simply the resilience that had brought him safely into the world against all odds, he was clearly thriving. "Have you decided on a name yet?" she asked, gently stroking the baby's cheek. Christine nodded, her expression softening. "Gabriel. It means God is my strength." She paused, meeting Eliza's eyes. "And his middle name is Mark, for obvious reasons." "Gabriel Mark Lawson." Eliza tested the name. "It suits him." "Actually," Christine corrected gently, "not Lawson anymore. The agents have arranged new identities for us as part of the protection program. New names, new backgrounds, new lives in a location even I don't know yet." A shadow crossed her face. "It's necessary, they say. As long as James is out there, as long as his research partners remain unidentified, Gabriel and I will never be truly safe under our real names." Eliza sat on the edge of the bed, processing this information. It made sense, of course. With Harrow still at large and the full extent of his scientific network unknown, Christine and Gabriel remained vulnerable. Yet the thought of them disappearing, of perhaps never seeing them again, left an unexpected ache in her chest. "When?" she asked simply. "Once I'm fully recovered. Once Luna." Christine's voice caught. "Have you heard anything? About Luna?" Eliza smiled, reaching for Christine's hand. "That's actually why I came. Luna is making what Dr. Green calls a miraculous recovery. She should be released by the end of the week." The relief that washed over Christine's face was profound, tears welling in her eyes. "She's really going to be okay?" "More than okay," Eliza assured her. "Though Green says she's driving the veterinary staff to distraction with her attempts to escape. Apparently, she chewed through 2 different styles of restraints before they gave up trying to keep her in bed." Christine laughed through her tears. That sounds like her. She's never been good at taking orders that don't make sense to her. Her expression grew serious again. Did Dr. Ramirez tell you what the agents are suggesting? About rehoming her? He did. And I also know he's fighting it, as am I. Luna belongs with you and Gabriel. After what she's done, what you've all been through together, no one has the right to separate you. Christine's grip on Eliza's hand tightened. They don't understand what she is, what she means to us. She's not just a pet, not just a service animal. She's family. I know, Eliza said soothingly. And there's something else you should know. Carefully, she explained what Ramirez had told her about Luna's unusual test results, about the possibility that the dog's extraordinary abilities might have roots in genetic research similar to what Harrow had been conducting. To her surprise, Christine didn't seem shocked by the revelation. I suspected something like that when I first started working with her, she admitted. No ordinary dog, no matter how well trained, could do the things Luna does. The way she processes information, anticipates events, communicates her understanding. She's special in ways I can't explain. Like you, Eliza said quietly. Christine's eyes widened slightly. What do you mean? Gently, Eliza shared what they had discovered about Christine's own genetic uniqueness. The natural mutations that had made her of particular interest to Harrow, the enhanced sensory processing that might explain her deep connection with Luna, the potential implications for Gabriel, who carried both his mother's natural gifts and his father's artificial modifications. So that's why James was so fixated on me, on our child, Christine murmured, looking down at Gabriel with new understanding. Not just as a vessel, but as a genetic match that complemented his work. Does it change how you feel about Gabriel? Eliza asked carefully. Knowing what's in his DNA? Christine's response was immediate and fierce. Not for a second. Whatever James did, whatever he hoped to create, Gabriel is his own person. He'll grow up loved, protected, free to become whoever he chooses to be. She brushed a gentle finger across her son's cheek. And he'll grow up knowing that his worth isn't in his genes or his potential, but in his humanity, something his father sacrificed in his quest for power. The conviction in her voice reminded Eliza of why she had risked so much to help this woman and her child. Christine's strength, her unwavering moral clarity despite everything she had endured, was as remarkable as any genetic mutation. A soft knock at the door interrupted their conversation. The agent from outside stepped in, his professional demeanor softened slightly by what appeared to be genuine excitement. Ms. Lawson, he said, using Christine's current name one last time. There's someone here to see you. Special clearance from Director Hansen himself. He stepped aside, and a familiar silver and white form limped into the room, one leg bandaged but tail wagging with unmistakable joy.
Luna.
Christine's cry was half sob, half laughter as the Malamute crossed to her side with surprising speed despite her injuries. The reunion that followed brought tears to Eliza's eyes. Luna's entire body seemed to vibrate with happiness as she gently nudged Gabriel's blanket, carefully sniffed every inch of him, then pressed her massive head against Christine's chest in what could only be described as an embrace. Christine buried her face in the dog's thick fur, whispering words of gratitude and love too quiet for Eliza to hear. After a moment, Luna turned her attention to Eliza, those intelligent eyes meeting hers with what seemed like recognition and appreciation. She approached slowly, then rested her head on Eliza's knee, a gesture of inclusion, of acceptance into their unusual family circle. Dr. Green said she was inconsolable at the veterinary hospital. The agent explained from the doorway, watching the scene with undisguised emotion. Wouldn't eat, wouldn't rest properly. When Director Hansen heard, he authorized a special exception to bring her here. Said something about not separating, the most effective protection detail he'd ever seen from her charges. Eliza stroked Luna's head, feeling the strong pulse of life beneath her fingers. Wise decision, she said simply. As Luna settled on the floor beside Christine's chair, positioning herself where she could see both the door and the baby, Eliza was struck by the perfect symmetry of the moment. Whatever path had brought them all together, genetic chance, scientific ambition, desperate courage, or simple human compassion, had created something precious and worth protecting. Gabriel stirred in his mother's arms, tiny fingers flexing in the sunlight. Luna's eyes tracked the movement, her protective instinct evident in every line of her powerful body. And Christine, cradling her son with one hand while the other rested on Luna's head, looked for the first time since Eliza had met her completely at peace. In that moment, Eliza understood with perfect clarity. This was what James Harrow, for all his scientific brilliance, had failed to grasp. True evolution wasn't about genetic manipulation or enhanced physical capabilities. It was about love that transcended species, courage that defied rational explanation, and bonds that could never be broken by fear or force. It was about a dog who had carried a newborn through a blizzard, protecting the most vulnerable life with her own. It was about the guardian who had shown them all what it truly meant to be human. The small coastal town of Port Haven existed on no official maps. Nestled between forest and ocean on the Pacific Northwest coast, its 100 or so residents valued privacy above all else. A community of people starting over, rebuilding lives, carrying secrets they had no intention of sharing. It was the perfect place for a young mother with a remarkable baby and an even more remarkable dog. Eliza's rental car wound along the coastal road, the ocean stretching endlessly to her right, towering pines to her left. 6 months had passed since she had said goodbye to Christine, Gabriel, and Luna as they departed for their new life under the Witness Protection Program. 6 months during which James Harrow remained at large, his scientific collaborators continued to be identified and arrested, and the ethical debate about genetic enhancement raged through medical communities worldwide. The address she had been given led to a small blue cottage on the outskirts of town, partially hidden by trees but with a clear view of the water. As she pulled into the gravel driveway, Eliza felt a mixture of anticipation and uncertainty. The federal agents had made it clear that this visit was a special exception, permitted only because of her unique role in the case and contingent upon absolute secrecy regarding the location. Before she could reach the front door, it swung open. Christine, now known to her neighbors as Emily Carter, stood in the doorway, her face lighting up with a smile that erased any trace of the trauma she had endured. "Right on time," she said warmly, stepping forward to embrace Eliza. "We've been watching for you since sunrise." Someone could hardly contain her excitement. As if on cue, Luna bounded out of the house, her silver and white coat gleaming in the morning light. All traces of her injuries had vanished. She moved with the fluid grace of an animal in perfect health, circling Eliza with enthusiastic greeting barks before pressing against her legs in a canine hug. "She remembers me," Eliza laughed, kneeling to properly greet the Malamute who had once delivered a newborn to her emergency room. "Of course she does," Christine replied, watching them with affection. "Luna never forgets a friend. Or a scent." She gestured toward the house. "Come inside. There's someone else very eager to meet you." The cottage interior was warm and inviting. Simple furnishings, walls painted in soft blues and greens, large windows that filled the space with natural light. In the center of the living room, a baby play mat was spread across the floor, and on it sat Gabriel, no longer a newborn but a sturdy 6-month-old with bright, curious eyes. Eliza gasped softly. The last time she had seen him, he had been a tiny, vulnerable infant fighting for survival in an incubator. Now he sat unassisted, reaching for colorful toys with perfect coordination, his gaze tracking her entrance with focused awareness that seemed advanced for his age. "Gabriel," Christine said softly, "this is Dr. Morgan, the lady I told you about, who helped save you when you were born." To Eliza's astonishment, the baby's face broke into a delighted smile of recognition, as if he understood every word. He raised his arms toward her, an unmistakable invitation to be picked up. "May I?" Eliza asked, moved beyond words. "Of course," Christine nodded, watching with evident pride as Eliza carefully lifted Gabriel. The baby felt solid and warm in her arms, his weight a testament to 6 months of healthy growth. He studied her face with intense interest, one small hand reaching up to touch her cheek with surprising gentleness. "He's remarkable," Eliza said softly, emotions tightening her throat. "So alert, so aware. He's developing faster than the charts predict, Christine confirmed, leading Eliza to the couch where they could sit. Luna immediately positioned herself at their feet, watchful as ever. His pediatrician, who knows nothing about his background, of course, says he's functioning at nearly twice his chronological age in terms of motor skills and cognitive development. And physically? Any health concerns? Christine shook her head. None. Perfect health, perfect growth. And perfect temperament, too. He rarely cries, adapts to change easily, sleeps through the night. Her expression grew thoughtful. Sometimes I wonder how much of that is James's modifications and how much is simply Gabriel being Gabriel. Nature versus nurture, Eliza mused, watching as the baby continued to study her with unnerving focus. The eternal question. Though in Gabriel's case, I suspect it's a more complex equation than most. I try not to think about it too much, Christine admitted, about what James hoped to create, what genetic legacy he may have left in our son. I just want Gabriel to have as normal a childhood as possible, to grow up feeling like he belongs in the world. And do you feel like you belong here? Eliza asked gently, gesturing to encompass the cottage and the hidden town beyond. Christine's smile returned, genuine and relaxed. Surprisingly, yes, the people here don't ask questions about your past. They respect boundaries, value privacy. I found work at the local veterinary clinic. Nothing that requires my real credentials, just basic technician duties. It's enough to supplement what the program provides. She stroked Luna's head affectionately. And having this one by my side opens a lot of doors. Everyone loves the story of the heroic single mom and her loyal dog, even if they don't know the half of it. As if aware she was being discussed, Luna raised her head, eyes moving between Christine and Gabriel with that distinctive awareness that had first caught Eliza's attention in the emergency room. The bond between the three of them seemed stronger than ever. Not just a woman, child, and pet, but a family unit with its own unique dynamics. And Luna? Any lingering effects from her injuries? Nothing physical, Christine replied. Dr. Green was right about her healing abilities being exceptional. But there have been other changes. She hesitated, looking down at the Malamute thoughtfully. Since the confrontation with James, her awareness, her responsiveness, seem enhanced. It's as if the experience triggered something dormant in her neurology. What do you mean? Christine lowered her voice slightly, though they were alone in the house. She understands things she shouldn't. Complex sentences, abstract concepts. She can open any door in the house, no matter what type of handle or lock. Last month during a storm, she dragged me out of bed 10 minutes before a tree fell on the roof over Gabriel's nursery. Eliza remembered what Ramirez had told her about Luna's test results, the unusual neural pathways, the advanced cellular structure. Have you told anyone else about this? Just Mark. He visits occasionally, officially as our assigned protection contact, unofficially as family. Christine smiled briefly. He thinks Luna's abilities were always there, just not fully expressed until extreme circumstances demanded it. Like a mother developing extraordinary strength to lift a car off her child. It was a comforting explanation, Eliza thought, watching Luna rest her head protectively against Gabriel's play mat. More comforting than considering the possibility that whatever had altered James' Harrow beyond recognition might be slowly awakening in the loyal dog who had saved their lives. Any word on Harrow? She asked, keeping her voice light for Christine's sake. Last I heard, the trail had gone cold. A shadow crossed Christine's face. Mark says there have been sightings, nothing confirmed, just reports from remote areas. Hikers describing a strange figure moving too fast through the forest. Hunters finding unusual tracks or shelters. She shuddered slightly. Whatever James has become, I don't think he can live among people anymore. His body was changing too rapidly, becoming something that couldn't pass as human. The price of his evolution, Eliza observed grimly. Exactly what you warned him about, losing his humanity in pursuit of enhancement. Gabriel squirmed in Eliza's arms, reaching toward the floor. She carefully set him down on the play mat, where he immediately began manipulating a complex puzzle toy with surprising dexterity. Luna shifted position to maintain her protective oversight, one paw gently touching the edge of the mat. I used to live in constant fear that he would find us, Christine continued, watching her son with a mixture of love and lingering concern. The first few months here, I barely slept. Every unfamiliar face in town, every unexpected sound at night, I was convinced it was James, coming to take Gabriel, to continue his work. And now I realize that even if he wanted to, he probably couldn't function in society anymore. And more importantly, I've stopped letting that fear define our lives. Christine's expression hardened with determination. Gabriel deserves better than a mother paralyzed by the past. He deserves joy, security, normalcy, as much as we can create for him. As if to emphasize her point, she rose and crossed to a small desk in the corner, retrieving a folder. Actually, I wanted to show you something. I've been in contact with Dr. Green anonymously through secure channels Mark arranged. I've been documenting Luna's behaviors, her development since the incident. She handed Eliza several pages of notes, observations, and even a few photographs. Page after page detailed Luna's extraordinary abilities, problem-solving skills that surpassed any documented canine intelligence, apparent understanding of human language far beyond simple commands, physical capabilities that defied normal limitations. You're creating a scientific record, Eliza realized, paging through the meticulous notes. Christine nodded. Someone should. Not for publication, at least not in my lifetime, but for knowledge. To understand what she is, what she's becoming. She smiled down at Luna, who had moved to rest her head on Christine's foot. I owe her that much, at least, to recognize her uniqueness, to honor what makes her special. Eliza was struck by the parallel, Christine documenting Luna's development with the same care and ethical consideration that had been missing from Harrow's approach to Gabriel. One driven by gratitude and respect, the other by ambition and control. There's something else, Christine said, her voice growing quieter. Something I haven't told anyone, not even Mark. She hesitated, glancing toward Gabriel to ensure he was absorbed in his play before continuing. Sometimes, when it's just the three of us, when Gabriel and Luna are playing or resting together, I see things, moments of connection between them that go beyond what should be possible. Christine's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. It's as if they're communicating, but not in any way I can understand. Gabriel will stare at Luna, completely focused, and she'll respond. Getting a specific toy, checking a window, even once bringing his blanket from another room that he couldn't possibly have seen. Eliza felt a chill run down her spine, not of fear but of wonder. You think they're developing some kind of bond beyond normal human-animal interaction? I think whatever makes Gabriel special, whatever makes Luna special, there's a resonance between them. Christine watched her son, who was now leaning comfortably against Luna's side as he played. Sometimes I can almost feel it myself, like a frequency just beyond normal hearing. It's not telepathy, not mind-reading, nothing that dramatic. Just awareness, connection, understanding without words. The implications were staggering. If Gabriel's genetic modifications and Luna's unusual neurology were indeed creating some form of enhanced communication, it represented an evolutionary step that even Harrow hadn't anticipated. Not forced adaptation through brutal experimentation, but natural connection developing between two beings with complementary capabilities. Does it frighten you? Eliza asked carefully. Christine considered the question, watching her son and his guardian with thoughtful eyes. It did at first, she admitted. It reminded me too much of what James wanted, to create something beyond human. But then I realized the fundamental difference. She turned to Eliza, her expression clear and certain. James wanted power. He wanted to conquer natural limitations, to elevate himself above others. But what I see between Gabriel and Luna is rooted in something else entirely. In love, in protection, in mutual care. She reached down to stroke Luna's fur, the Malamute leaning into her touch without taking her eyes off Gabriel. That's what James never understood. With all his brilliant research and evolutionary theories, true advancement doesn't come from overpowering nature or forcing change. It comes from connection, from relationship, from recognizing the value in differences and finding harmony between them. Eliza felt the truth of Christine's words resonate deeply. In her years of medical practice, she had witnessed countless examples of the body's remarkable ability to heal, adapt, and evolve, not through external force but through internal wisdom and balance. "What will you do?" she asked. "As Gabriel grows, as these connections develop?" "Love him," Christine replied simply. "Guide him. Teach him to use whatever gifts he has with compassion and wisdom." She smiled, a mother's fierce love evident in her expression. "And trust Luna to do the same in her way. She's never let us down before." As if sensing the significance of the moment, Gabriel looked up from his toys, his gaze moving between his mother and Eliza with that unnerving awareness. Then, to Eliza's astonishment, he patted Luna's side and made a soft sound. Not a random baby noise, but something that sounded almost like a word. "Luna." Luna's ears perked up, her tail thumping against the floor in evident pleasure. She gently nuzzled Gabriel's cheek, drawing a delighted giggle from the baby. "His first word," Christine whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Of course it would be her name. The perfect symmetry of the moment, the child's first communication being the name of the guardian who had saved his life, felt like the closing of a circle that had begun that snowy night in the emergency room. Whatever the future held for this remarkable family, their bond would be their strength, their protection against whatever challenges awaited. As the afternoon stretched into evening, Eliza found herself reluctant to leave. This hidden cottage by the sea had become a sanctuary not just for Christine, Gabriel, and Luna, but for her as well. A place where extraordinary possibilities lived alongside everyday joys, where the line between human and animal blurred into something more profound than either. When the time finally came to depart, promises were made for future visits, carefully arranged through marked secure channels. Luna walked Eliza to her car, pressing against her legs one last time in farewell, those intelligent eyes seeming to convey gratitude and assurance in equal measure. "We'll be all right," Christine said, reading Eliza's reluctance to leave them. "All of us together, whatever comes next." Eliza nodded, believing her. If there was one thing she had learned from this remarkable journey, it was that some bonds transcended understanding, some guardians defied all limitations, and some families, unconventional as they might be, were destined to not just survive but thrive against all odds. As she drove away, the sunset painting the ocean in gold and crimson, she caught a final glimpse in her rearview mirror. A woman, a child, and a dog standing together on the porch of their seaside cottage, silhouetted against the fading light, three beings connected by something deeper than blood, stronger than DNA, more enduring than any scientific breakthrough. The guardian had found her purpose, and in doing so had shown them all what it truly meant to be human.